The Whispering Snowman. Jenna loved snow more than anything. When the first flakes of the season fell, she practically flew outside, her boots crunching over the thin layer of frost as she imagined all the things she could create. Her mom's voice called from the porch, "Don't stay out too long, Jenna. It's getting colder by the minute. I'll just finish my snowman." Jenna replied, already rolling the base. The snow that day was perfect, soft yet packed easily. It took her longer than usual to shape the 3 spheres, but she finally had the body ready. The bottom ball was big and solid, the middle smaller but lumpy, and the head slightly misshapen. She didn't mind. Imperfect things had personality. Next, she rummaged through the garage, finding coal pieces for the eyes and buttons. She broke a stick into jagged halves for the arms and chose a tree branch for the smile, bending it just so. Then, digging through a box of old clothes, she found a red scarf that had belonged to her dad years ago. She tied it around the snowman's neck and stepped back to admire her work. "You're perfect," she whispered, almost imagining the snowman smiling back at her. The day faded into evening, and a chill set into the air. Jenna's mom called her inside for dinner, and reluctantly, she left her new frosty friend behind. She didn't notice how the coal eyes seemed to follow her as she walked back to the house. That night, the wind howled against Jenna's bedroom window, rattling the glass. She had trouble falling asleep, the excitement of the day still buzzing in her mind. She lay staring at the ceiling when a faint sound made her sit up. It was soft, barely audible, but it was there, the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the snow. Jenna tiptoed to her window, her breath fogging up the glass. She wiped it clean with her sleeve and peered out. The snowman hadn't moved. It stood exactly where she left it, scarf fluttering slightly in the wind. Jenna squinted into the darkness but saw nothing else. Shrugging, she went back to bed, telling herself it was just the wind playing tricks. An hour passed. This time, the sound was louder. Jenna's eyes shot open, her heart pounding. She crept to the window again, her hands trembling as she pulled back the curtain. Her breath caught in her throat. The snowman was no longer in the middle of the yard. It was closer, standing near the garden fence. Jenna's hands flew to her mouth to stifle a scream. How had it moved? It wasn't possible. Snowmen didn't just walk around. "Mom," she whispered, opening her door to call for help. The hallway was silent. The door to her parents' room was slightly ajar, and their faint snores reassured her. She was safe, wasn't she? She tiptoed back to bed, her eyes darting toward the window every few seconds. Crunch. Crunch. The sound jolted her awake again. This time, it was unmistakable. Jenna froze, gripping her blanket tightly. Slowly, she turned to the window. The snowman was on the porch. Its stick arms were longer now, twisted and gnarled, scratching lightly at the glass of the front door. The crooked smile she'd carefully crafted with a branch seemed to have widened, its jagged edges curling upward in a grotesque grin. Jenna's chest tightened. She backed away from the window and bolted toward her parents' room. "Mom! Dad!" she whispered, shaking them awake. Her dad groaned. "What's wrong, Jenna?" "The snowman, it's on the porch," she stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. Her mom frowned. "It's just a snowman, sweetheart. You probably had a bad dream." "No. It moved. It's real." Her parents exchanged skeptical looks but followed her to the window. Jenna pointed outside, but the yard was empty. The snowman was gone. "See? Nothing's there," her dad said with a sigh. "Come on, let's all get back to bed." But Jenna couldn't sleep. She stayed awake, clutching her flashlight under the covers, listening for any sound. At 3 a.m., the whispers began. Jenna. Her name slithered through the silence, faint and raspy. She sat bolt upright, shining her flashlight toward the door. Frost crept along the walls, spreading like icy veins. The air grew colder, her breath visible in the beam of light. "You made me, Jenna," the voice hissed. "Now I'm coming for you." The door creaked open slowly, and there it stood. The snowman's coal eyes gleamed in the darkness, and its thick arms reached toward her. Jenna screamed as the room filled with an icy chill. She tried to run, but the frost crawled up her legs, freezing her in place. The last thing she saw was the snowman's grin growing impossibly wide. The next morning, the sun melted the last traces of the snow in the yard. Neighbors noticed that Jenna's house was eerily quiet. When they knocked on the door, no one answered. All they found was her scarf lying on the porch and a trail of wet footprints leading into the woods. Subscribe to @NoSleepZone on YouTube and @NoSleepZone TikToks for more chilling tales.